Bothers you.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we're recording.
Yeah, it just did not. Okay, why is this? Speakers did
Let's
not.
verify that.
It is, it does say it's recording. Hey,
Okay.
Don, can you hear us?
Yeah, you're good. You're recording.
You hear us online.
Muted.
Yeah, you guys are good.
Technical difficulties here.
Melanie, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear
I
me?
don't hear anybody.
Sounds like a one-way trip.
There.
But I don't know if he can hear us. He's talking.
Well, there's Jimmy, we can hear you. Okay,
Can you hear them talking back to
we
you?
can now.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy.
It's because we.
Almost fails like walk to the room. Okay, we're online.
Yeah, we're online, everything should be working now.
All right, everybody.
And are we through the owl? Are we through the?
The speaker, the microphones are good, they're coming through the speaker, the owl speaker.
Okay, and everybody gets to share in our confusion. Okay, so welcome everyone. Today is Tuesday, June 4th. It is 4 o'clock and this is the regular meeting of the Jefferson Public Utility District Board of Commissioners. My name is Jeff Randall. I am president of the board and I'm calling this meeting to order. Jefferson PUD will offer both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. And if you are calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise a hand to request to speak. So before we get going, can we do a roll call of commissioners? I am Jeff Randall, president of the board and commissioner for District 1.
Ken Collins, Commissioner, District 2.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3.
You're all present and accounted for. Okay, item 3, agenda review. Do we have any items to change on the agenda? Staff says none.
I'll make the motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye, we have an approved agenda. Okay, so the next item is public comment for things either on the consent agenda or not on the agenda at all. And the public comment period allows members of the public to comment limited to 3 minutes each on any items not specifically listed on the agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. Prior to any public comment, members of the public must first be recognized by the president and are not permitted to disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct and fair progress of the commission's meeting. After an initial warning by the president, individuals who intentionally violate these guidelines through actual disruption of the commission meeting will be dropped from the meeting. Do we have any members of the public?
Got
who would like-
a hand raised.
So Ron, I don't have my glasses on, read your last name, Hildebrandt.
Shine LED.
And you can go first and then the 0246 number can go second. Go ahead, Ron.
My name is Ron Hildebrandt. I'm in the Shine Plat LUD area. I see we are not on the agenda this week again. We were on last week, but not currently. We had been promised, we had a meeting with the PUD staff concerning the project 2 weeks ago. We had been promised that there would be final numbers out. We reviewed the numbers at the PUD office, and we were all very happy about the meeting, and the final numbers were supposed to go out by that Friday or maybe Tuesday or Wednesday of the following week. And we have not seen anything as of yet. So I'm looking to see, one, I'm concerned now that with the agenda, with final numbers not being sent out to the public, that we will not make the consent decree for the finalization of the project on the next meeting now if we need 2 weeks in the paper. So need an update. We've got several transactions that are being held up at title, the title companies with being able to sell and purchase property in the neighborhood. So we're wanting to see where we are at this week.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Kevin, will staff address that during the staff report portion of the agenda? Okay, Ron, so if you can stick around for item number 6, manager and staff reports, we'll talk about it then. Okay,
Let's see who's next.
Roger was next. Yeah, who, the 0246 or the just 246. Roger, I think you had your hand up next.
Yep.
let's meet customer generator District 2. Under your agenda, there's no items under old business. Am I to assume that there is no old business? And if it's old business, why wouldn't you list the items? It's not like they would come up new. Thank you.
I think that's just a placeholder.
Or there's no action.
And we don't have any items, so we'll just skip right over that, correct, Kevin? Yeah, okay. And again, nobody in the audience? Okay, we'll get to you next. Tom Tierce, you're next up.
Good afternoon, commissioners, staff. A couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, the recent meetings, you've been discussing the possibility of imposing some capacity charges, some surcharges for new construction and so forth. And one of the things that came up at the last meeting, Commissioner Randall, you mentioned the problem that it might be problematic for people trying to install fast electric chargers for EVs, having to pay some fairly hefty fees just to set up service. That could discourage people from trying to do that. So it occurred to me that, you know how we have things that are of for the general public good. We have special rates for schools, for example. The schools get a special interruptible rate, has been that for a long time. So it occurred to me that maybe you could put in place as part of your next rate study, the possibility of establishing a special rate for high capacity EV chargers. Give them a financial incentive, something that would offset the cost of the one-time cost to pay for those additional capacity charges that you're thinking about imposing. That would, help, I think, encourage people to bring in more fast chargers, which of course are going to be needed in much greater quantities than are currently planned for this area. And so that's my suggestion, is to think about that for the next for the upcoming rate study. Maybe asking your consultants to consider what that would what the impact of that might be. The other thing that I wanted to mention is a few meetings ago, I'd asked for some input or some information, I guess, about how some major programs were going. One of them was the meter replacement program. And then we heard a nice report about, things are going pretty well. And yes, I know there is a web page that shows progress. But one of the things that we were expecting as part of this meter replacement project was that the old meters, the old mechanical meters, which were purported to be under-reporting, would be replaced, and that the PUD could expect to get, maybe as much as $1 million a year in additional revenue that it hadn't been collecting because of the old meters. And so I'm just wondering if any of that's actually happened. Have we seen evidence that the new meter systems are in fact reporting accurately and more importantly, reporting more revenue for the PUD for some of the oldest meters that had been replaced? Have you run any comparisons, before and after on sort of a bulk basis? And that's just a question for staff, nothing I expect an answer to right now, but I think it would be interesting to know if the expectations for that project are in fact coming true. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. And Kevin, are you able to touch on the meter issue during the staff report also?
I'd like to do a report, but at a follow-up meeting, because I need to have some information pulled by David. Great question. We will put a report together, but probably not today.
Okay. All right, Tom, so if you can tune in at the next meeting, sounds like we'll try and respond to that then. And then in the back of the room, somebody had their hand up.
I'm Paul Becker with the Eagle Ridge Homeowners Association. I wondered if we're going to get an update on our water system.
Okay, is that the extent of your comment? Okay, thank you. And is that something you can address so we'll address that during staff report also. Okay, we have one. That was Roger. Okay, yes, Leo.
Today I come to you because I have broadband support concerns. So during the time where no one ran this network out here, it was flawless, no problems whatsoever. PUD forced us to move our NoNet customers over to the new JPUD network. And there's been a constant flow of problems. The last one, back on about the 21st, you guys did some work and some upgrades. We almost immediately reported issues with customers. And then it finally came to a head last Friday, and I called and I talked to Cody. And his response was, it's 4:30 on a Friday, it's after hours, and I'm on vacation. And I got 180 people that are having problems. And that is not the response when somebody's paying thousands of dollars a month to provide service to customers. So my question to you is, if this is the kind of answers that we get, then what are you guys gonna do when you have thousands of your own customers that are having a problem? Because previously I could go to NOAANet at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. They would get an engineering team together who would contact like Hurricane Electric, get a team together, get a team to Google together. And 15 minutes later, they're going, found the problem, fixed. But like, I mean, that just is that's just unbelievable. You know, 180 people and it's Friday after hours and I'm on vacation.
Is that the extent of your comment, Leo?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. I know Will may or may not be on that. Seems like a significant enough question. I don't know if you're able to respond to that during staff or if you want to respond now or.
I can respond a little bit for staff in the manager's meeting or the manager's portion. I can't go into specifics on this one because I don't know a lot of what Leo's talking about, but
Okay. All right, and we can talk about it more when we get there. Okay, anybody else? Comments, questions on consent agenda or on nothing at all? And Roger, still have your hand up, but I assume that's an old hand. Unless you, okay. All right, moving along. The next item is the Housing Solutions Network presentation.
Greetings. So Bill Wise, I'm the chair of the Housing Solutions Network, and I'm here with Liz Revoid, who's our executive director. We are concerned with affordable housing, in particular for our workforce here in Jefferson County. And we've been in existence for some 5+ years now. We've been an advocate for solutions for affordable housing. There's a lot of good work going on, need a lot more work. Currently, we have lots of, and I'm sure you have them as well, anecdotal stories about problems with our workforce finding affordable housing here in Jefferson County. Some of our employers have remote employees, folks that maybe live on the other side of Walker Pass in the wintertime or on the other side of the bridge when the bridge goes down. And those employees can't get to work for essential services. And that puts stress on the existing staff. And so what we're doing right now is doing a survey of the entire county, involving the community, the workforce, and the employers, to understand the depth of the affordable housing solution, understand some of the needs that are required. We can go to the next slide. Accurately understand what the needs are here in the county. So have something that's maybe closer to statistically valid rather than anecdotal. We'll be able to report out on this and inform our government decision makers, builders and contractors who are wondering just what are the requirements out there, and to the community in general. Next slide. So we designed this survey in the fourth quarter last year. We tested and evaluated it with a couple dozen individuals and employers. We have begun now the survey data collection process. We started at the Connectivity Fair, April 20th. So that was kind of a soft launch. And now we're out there and meeting with the employers, you all. And we're getting really good response. We have now over 600 folks that have submitted responses to this, which is great. We want to get a lot more. And kind of what we're here to do today is to ask if you might consider mechanisms that you could get out to get to all your employees so we can get a good sense of what the utility market is, what the issues are on the workforce there as well. If you could do an all employee blast, and we've got some good tools that you can use in doing that, encourage your employees to fill this out. We'll get a sense of what's going on. We'll use August and September to basically figure out what we got. We've got some people on board to help us with that.
We'll have a third-party individual from Sea Grant, Washington State Sea Grant, to help us with the data analysis. As many of you probably are aware of Sea Grant, but they also look at data for economic values within the coastal communities of Washington State. So we'll be using them to look at what is, it's one thing for me to tell you that we have a housing crisis, but it's another thing to show you the data. And I think one of the important key parts of this data collection right now is the last time we had information updated for our county, specifically around housing and demographics and income, was with the 2020 census. And as we all know, since the pandemic, that information and data collection has kind of gone out the window. So in order to better inform our stakeholders in our city and county while they're working through their comprehensive plans, we really do need to know what's going on, what is the need, and where are we at? And I see a question on there. My name is Liz Reboard. I am the Director of Housing Solutions Network. So I'm not trying to take over, just tag teaming here.
So yeah, it's good to have people on board that know what they're doing in terms of data analysis, and that'll be helpful. And then we plan on delivering the results probably in October, where we'll deliver it to our government entities, to the community in general, to key employers, and work with you and really get that word out of what the actual needs are.
So really quick, so really quick, Liz touched on it. So you're coordinating with the county and the city on their comp plan updates. To what extent? Because I'm representing us on the Growth Management Steering Committee, and I know that's an issue that's getting talked about a little bit, because county code and zoning and things like that, and city as well, will have an effect on what can and will be done. So to what extent are you coordinating with them?
That's a great question. So at the county level right now, we're engaging with the Planning Commission and working through what their priorities are. In May, they just kind of came up with that last big list of proposals that will go through the process of prioritization, especially because, like many other government entities, they are pretty thin staffed right now because they're losing staff due to housing. With the city, we are still working with them to find the best way for us to support them. I'll be meeting with Emma next week, the director of planning within the city, to identify what roles both this survey can help support, but also maybe some additional outreach, community engagement that we can help with. And I also sit on the board, which is how we're here today, of the EDC, and looking at ways that not just housing, plays a role into this, but also, work within the workforce and identifying key ways to have jobs here and workers for those jobs.
Yeah.
So your ask, among other things, is that we implement the survey among PUD employees. To that end, could you please copy the three commissioners on a sample of the survey?
Yeah, absolutely. I can send you over a PDF so that you can look through it prior to. We actually have two surveys, to be very clear. We have one for the community and then one for employers. So ideally, it would be great to send something like the employer survey over to your HR and have them fill it out, but then also sending that community survey out to all of your employees. And I know Bill has a few other things to kind of go through, so I'm stepping on some toes.
Please continue, Bill.
That's good. So you can see the economic sectors that we're addressing. They've been defined within the EDC for a couple of decades now. A lot of them deal with, who we are as a community. Our arts and culture, our maritime sectors, restaurant, retail, hospitality. All of those sectors sort of define who we are, but then there's also essential services, healthcare, utilities, our government services. These are critical to who we are as a community. So we need to be able to provide affordable and dignified housing for our workers. And that's really what this whole effort is all about, to quantify that and really get the word out in a better fashion. And then final slide, I think. So service delivery, our staff, Liz, we've got a couple of communications and network weavers that are working with us. We're out there and reaching out to employers. I met with the paper mill last week, meeting with the city, the county, all of the different sectors, healthcare, et cetera. We're doing outreach at the PT Co-op, the farmers market, concert, you name it, we're there. Canvassing key business areas. Liz mentioned earlier the Sea Grant analysis that we have. We've engaged the EDC. They've sent it out to over 1,200 of their contact list. And then we'll have a public presentation for all of the stakeholders as we get down the road. So then one more. So anyway, we are doing both an employer and a worker survey. We've got a page that we can send to you that has sample email text that you can send out, as well as some explanations of why we're doing and what we're doing. We've delivered the survey both in terms of a QR code, which people use with their phones, and a URL link for more traditional folks that are still using computers. And then if anybody has any questions, housing solutions at jcfgives.org, and get answers to you and be responsive to any comments that you might have. So as takeaways, here we'll get the PDFs to you of the surveys and send them out to the commissioners and to Kevin. And
we also have the survey available, the community survey available in Spanish, if that's something that is needed for your staff. And yeah, we try to make it pretty easy. And for anybody else in the room, you can still go to that link, take the community survey as well. It really is looking not just for our workers, but to have a better understanding of housing needs across all spectrums, all area median incomes, and whether or not you are retired, because we are noticing that with the aging population in our community, people want to age in place, which actually holds on to that housing inventory at a longer rate than national average. So we have to take those types of things into consideration as we look at what needs to be built, what needs to be created here through our housing organizations, our government entities, and the future of our community. So.
And then one final comment, it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes to do the survey. So
I was going to ask you that
pretty
question.
straightforward. For an employer, it's even quicker if you have the answers.
Could you pull that slide back up, Mike, with the workforce sectors again? I didn't quite get through that one. I guess I can just ask, have you reached out to the Home Builders Association, because a lot of the construction workers and.
We have a list that's
okay,
amazingly long. That's why we're taking through July to really get out there. So it takes time to do these kind of meetings, set them up, put out to people.
Oh yeah, building trees.
Yeah.
We'll be working with Liz Ann Coker, and we've also are going to set up a pop-up out at Carl's as well, just to kind of get people coming in and out. And we'll set up a pop-up tent for 2 hours a day at any specific place that you're looking for, if you're considered, if you want to host something. But we really just want to get out there and talk with people and meet with people. And it's been overwhelmingly positive response so far of people just wanting to be heard. That's really been the reaction that we've gotten while canvassing. So it's important, and it really helps define the future of housing and planning accordingly for our community, because we're not just in a deficit, but we have to plan for the future as well.
And good timing for the comp plans as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So commissioners, are you interested in encouraging staff to encourage the employees to participate?
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, this affects us too. I mean, we already see that. with
So-
our ability to hire.
I'm fine. with that.
So for me, there's a difference of, letting folks know versus letting them know and maybe having some follow-up, say, some way that HR could, hey, please take 5 or 10 minutes to fill this out. And then doing some follow-up, hey, how many people have done it? I don't know if there's a way to do that, but that would be, I think it's kind of in our own interest to encourage our people to participate.
We'll encourage it. I don't know if some of the matrix you're talking about, we would have access to, so, but I could come back after Melanie's looked into this and figure out how we can.
Yeah,
encourage
I would assume it's an anonymous
Right.
survey, so
Absolutely,
doing
yeah.
follow-up.
Right. I guess if it's something from Melanie saying, please
Encourage it.
please do it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why. Here's the links. Make it easy. Take a few minutes to do it. Okay.
Also, if we could ask, I'd be happy to send you over something for the community survey if you go out in the PUD newsletter. We would love to encourage things like that, but I'd also be happy to talk with Melanie on creative ways that we've worked with other partners to kind of have better data for your entity specifically.
Sure.
And Jameson and Will, I've put a note here, they can put something out in the newsletter, some things like that we can help with.
Right. And especially if there's deadlines in there when you're trying to collect your data by, that oftentimes helps when we send something out. It lets people know, please do it by this date.
So it occurs to me that you also have contractors.
Yeah.
Might be good to put the word out to them too. That'd be great.
That's why I asked about who, and you had building trades and the contractors and the home builders association. I'm assuming, the major contractors, their workforce is fairly stable. It's not that transient. So those workers are looking for, like the sewer going in Hadlock, there's a lot of workers working on that. And so, just another angle that we have to look for to help people with housing.
Trying to identify people who want to work here but can't find housing to work here, and people who used to live here and work here but had to move away. And that's a really difficult, area to kind of reach out to. But we already started seeing responses like that. So.
Cool. All right. Thank you for coming. And thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Feels a lot like
Thank you for your time.
the old Earth Day stuff you were involved with, Bill. Data collection. So
Really lucky
thank
to
you.
have him with all of them.
It's got that same feel. Okay, so moving,
Folks,
thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on to manager and staff reports.
So manager staff reports, we're gonna go down my list, Fort Townsend Main Street project, Mike Bailey.
So we're gonna, last year we did, we donated with a credit to our B and O tax. We did a donation to the PT Main Street tax donation program, tax incentive program, then we get a 75% credit. We did $10,000 last year. We're gonna do another 10,000 to them this year just to help sponsor the economic through Port Townsend's Main Street program, and then get our 75% credit. $7,500 credit on our B&O tax, so.
So just a little more background on that program. Is that something that only that qualifies as Main Street? I mean, there are other parts of the county that we could do this as well, like in the tri-areas, the urban growth center. I mean, places like that.
They have to register, it's specific to like Main Street programs, downtown associations. There's program, they have to be through DOR, the Department of Revenue, that says that they qualify to allow this in tax incentive program.
So basically, I remember we had this conversation last time. So basically, if there are other community groups in Quilcene or
If there was anything
Tri-area,
or
whatever,
we could do it. through
and
them.
they went through that process, we could do it for them too.
We could do it for
We would
them.
be open to any
Yep. Yeah,
kind of,
right now, the only one in our area is the Port Townsend, the Main Street program.
Okay.
And it does help with, their programs and their economic development stuff, so.
Yeah. I think it's a nice way to give back.
So we're just gonna do that again this year.
Okay. Please continue.
Jose's gonna give a update where we are on the Eagle Ridge project in engineering.
So we just got, we did the field hydrant testing, flow test. And we are in design a little bit. There's still a little bit of information they need in order to.
And this is the, sorry to interrupt, this is the engineers, okay, thank you.
HDR, couple things with peak demand, you know, things like that, making sure, one of the recommendations is to move that pump station to the foot of the, I guess, the road there, right by the, where it comes across, dropping it, it'd be like about 120 feet worth of elevation,
Mm-hmm.
which we would gain about 50 pounds of pressure at the
Mhm.
suction of it, which
Mhm.
the discharge would then be about 130.
Okay,
So we're looking into the peak demand, making sure that the pumps that we have in there now are gonna suffice.
okay.
So we're almost there.
And you said making sure the equipment we have will suffice. Are they also looking at if upgrades are needed to meet some, whatever standard?
Yeah, so
Is appropriate.
we're gonna do an analysis on the water consumption for all the, just specifically those homes up there. The pressure zone is almost 300 feet, it's 294 feet where it pumps up to, and that's, you know, what's considered the pressure zone for them. But by dropping it, they should be good. We have some information on pump curve and all that. So it's just making sure the numbers are good.
So we are, and sorry to interrupt again, we are identifying measures that would improve the situation.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Do you have more?
So yeah, were there any other components to the needs up there? Or is this the only or the major one, or what's the complete menu of what we're looking at or going to look at on that system?
It would be dropping the pump station. So it would be the suction, on the suction side of things, running the flow test, it dropped quite a bit of pressure on it, which would indicate the problems that they're having now. The solution would be to drop elevation on the pump station.
Because I'm just trying to recall some of the concerns, you know, obviously pressure was one, air in the system maybe was another, and I don't know if fire flow was even something that was at issue or not with this system. I'm just trying to refresh my memory on what all it was that we
Yeah.
were going to look
I
at.
think another one was they were concerned about development in the area of additional extensions and
Mhm.
how that could affect the system.
Drop in the pump house, it should, as far as fire flow is concerned, that's a different.
Well, the size of pipe and the volume would matter, I would think, wouldn't it, for fire flow?
We can't get fire flow up there.
Yeah, we can't.
Pipe is too small, pipe to get a hydrant up there.
So it would require additional improvements that we aren't currently looking at to have
Correct.
fire flow in that neighborhood.
HDR is looking at is a solution to the home pressure and the volume of water,
Right.
and they're very close. Once they do the pump curves and a little bit more analysis, we'll have a project that we can bring back to the boards. Okay, this is a project. This is what's gonna have to happen to
Okay.
fix the issues they have.
Well, it does validate some of the concerns that people in the neighborhood had, that there was an issue. So it sounds like we're kind of, I can almost imagine if you got a pump up here and it's pumping away, but the water coming to it is inadequate, it just holds the whole system back. Okay. All right.
So question. What does the pump curve look at?
So. Okay. So pumps are designed to have so much pressure coming into the pump and so much pressure coming out. So the curve says, okay, based on the dynamics of the system that's been modeled by HDR and proven by our testing out in the field, they have to have this much volume coming into the pump to get this much volume out of the pump, and then they calculate it to each house. And that part is being complete. So that's the curves we're talking about on the motor. So it's sized to the correct in and out volume. So.
Okay.
Any more comments or presentation? Okay.
I'll reach out to the gal that I've been emailing and give her a quick update so she can let everybody know up there.
Okay. I know we had somebody from Eagle Ridge.
We have a time frame for the completion of the study?
We're moving pretty fast on it.
Do we have a time frame for completion?
I'd say couple weeks. We'll have the analysis pretty much squared away, and we'll bring a project to the table and say this is the direction that we're recommending.
Okay, and as you do that, you are communicating with a spokesperson in the community too.
Yeah, this one, I have the information. I just got the information on Friday.
Got it. But we're trying to keep them in the loop
Yeah.
as to what's happening. I think it's helpful to let them know what we know, because then they know whether to show up or not at a particular meeting. So, okay, cool. Well, thank you, Jose. Kevin?
Bean is gonna introduce Jennifer.
I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our new customer service manager. Jennifer will be working underneath me and overseeing billing and customer service, and give me a chance to get some work done.
Yay.
I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey, I'm Jennifer Deerseth. I'm coming from healthcare. I've been in healthcare for the last 14 years, focused mainly on customer service and billing. So it's great to not have to work with insurance companies anymore. I'm happy to be still supporting the public though. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
And are you new to the community also, or were you already located here?
I was born and raised in Port Townsend. I moved to Port Angeles about 10 years ago.
Okay,
Back now. So.
nice. All right.
Put on firms.
Yeah. All right. Kevin?
Shine Flat, Mike.
So we did meet with Ron and a couple of ladies from Shine Plat a couple weeks ago. I think we're pretty well squared away on the numbers. I had vacation, Kevin had some vacation time. We did have a couple questions come up on final amounts. Our work order that we track cost shows one amount, the loan showed a different amount. So we were just trying to double check and verify everything. With that, to make sure, see what happened. And Kevin, I just need to touch base. We think we've got a solution. We think we know what we're gonna move forward with. And so we're gonna do that, and hopefully we'll still be where we can do for the 18th, do the final assessment stuff on the 18th.
Okay, if for some reason that date slipped, would we be able to do
We could probably do a special meeting.
special meeting?
Just trying to get everybody. I know Dan's out towards the end of the month, but as long as we could get the other two available, we'd still be able to do a special meeting and do it.
And it sounds like there's a request by that neighborhood to be kept in the loop once we have new numbers to share with them. Is that something?
Yeah, we
you're
were
also
supposed to
doing?
finalize some stuff, but then as looking into it, a couple things came up. And then just after the holiday, after vacations, Kevin and I haven't had the chance to meet up like we need to verify everything and be able to send it off. But I'm hoping tomorrow or Thursday, we can sit down, discuss it with what we need to discuss, and then get the final numbers out to to Ron and the two ladies, and then they can share the information with everybody else.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Any questions from folks?
The question I have is, once those numbers are published, don't you have to go out for a 2 weeks notice to the paper before you give it back to the commissioners?
We think so.
Or not?
Well, we're not exactly sure I need to double check the RCW we're on. We think we might be able to get away with just 1 week, but we need to double check that was part of also trying to find the notice that we needed to print. Nobody had it. We had trouble finding a final notice, but we needed a copy of it to know what we actually needed to print in the paper. So I think we can get away with 1 week, but we may have to push it to the following week after the 18th, so the week of the 24th. but we're gonna try not to. We're gonna try to do it on the 18th so we can get it all done.
Okay, and let's just make sure whatever we do it right.
Yeah, we will
Even
make sure that we call
if
the
we have to push it back a week, it's important to do it right.
No, we will make sure we do it the right way. That's why we need to double check the RCW that we're following, and it's been a while since we've done one of these. Maristone and Beckett Point with the last 2 LUDs that we did.
Okay.
So we're trying to make.
Yeah, it's important to us that we try to hit that 18th meeting. We do not want this to drag on any further.
Okay, yep, we are gonna do our best to try to get that done.
Okay, if nothing else on Shine Plat, moving on.
So I have 2 things left. I will answer Leo's question first. I do take what Leo said very seriously. We have a network now. We have to manage it very similar to like we do our water and our power. So I will do some research. Our goal is to be the best provider in Jefferson County. And so we will be working towards this. I will bring some information back as I find out, what happened and some specifics on this issue, but shouldn't have happened.
Do we have metrics that we maintain on reliability of our system and how much it's up and so forth?
We do, some of that we have to do for the federal government. There's things like that we have to report. I don't know how the reports are generated or how often we generate them. There's some things like that we can put together as matrix to kind of track some of these kind of things. It sounds like we need to.
Yeah, it seems like we're kind of in that designing our systems, we're hiring staff, we're starting a new business, and it sounds like we're designing systems. And I think as the commissioners, we're going to be interested too in our reliability.
Yeah, we get 2 9s or 6 9s, right?
Or 3 6s, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I have a question for you on this particular thing. I know you have to research what Leo described to you. So my question is, what is our responsibility in our wholesale provider contracts? Is this something that covers, or is this something outside of those wholesale contracts with the other ISPs? Where does this fall as what our responsibilities are or are not?
The contracts, I can't quote to talk about now. It's just unacceptable. If there's outages, we need to fix them. But I will go back and part of the report will be, what do we actually support at Leo's level and others levels? Because at different levels, there's different amounts of support.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if there's a policy issue here, if it's just a compliance issue with what we already have in place.
I will just say this, it's an unacceptable issue that will be reviewed and worked on.
Okay. Any more?
Oh,
go ahead,
my
Leo.
biggest concern is that, you got one person that you're dealing with here that's representing 180 people, right? It's really easy for somebody when the power goes out to go, oh, yep, everybody's lights are out. But when it comes to the internet, you're gonna get, right? They don't know if their neighbor's internet's out. You're gonna get 180 people that are calling you guys going, hey, why is my internet not working? And you're gonna find that all of a sudden there's this huge burden of how do we handle all these calls?
Yeah, we're talking 2 different things here. Customer service, our support, we need to do a better job. We do have plans to know when the 150 people are out. That's a totally different subject for a different day.
Okay. I want to move on. Do you have anything more?
I want to talk a little bit about, we've talked to the commission about having a planning meeting. It was kind of proposed as a strategic planning, but what we're really looking for is very specific projects. In the very near future, we're gonna have to spend millions of dollars on electric upgrades. We're spending millions of dollars in broadband. So in the July meeting, it's not only give you update on the projects, but it will be, how do we finance these projects? Mike and I talked, a good example is on the Navy grant they're working on, you have to have the work done in 5 years. To purchase a transformer is 4+ years out. How do you work that in your finances? How can you guarantee 4 years from now you have the $2 million for that piece of equipment? So a lot of what we'll do, and we will start sending some information out to the commissioners on the different projects. One of the projects we're going to talk about tonight, but it is more in the weeds than like a true strategic planning session. It is project oriented, it is budget oriented, it's cash flow. We're starting to get invoicing from the contractor working down on the coil or the quilting. How do you manage all that? In each department, everybody here has a role to play on, so each manager or director will give some information. We'll put an agenda together where at first it'll be pretty open topic. The board will be brought up to speed on some projects. We'll have some drawings, and then we'll get down into different pieces and parts. So I hope that works well for the commissioners at this time.
I'd still like to see us incorporate about an hour of time in that to review the strategic plan, which by our governance, we're supposed to be doing annually. And in that same hour, look at maybe the finance and the risk management stuff, because that goes with the planning that we're talking about. So I've seen the preview of the meeting time-wise. It's a pretty big stretch of time we're putting aside.
I know it seems like a big stretch of time, but we feel this is the first of many meetings we're gonna have to properly align ourselves with the amount of work and money that's gonna be required to move forward. I don't, like I say, this is just one of many meetings that has to happen. We all have to have buy-in, for the how many energy and money.
So it sounds like, Kevin, what you're proposing, it sounds like capital facility planning, management, financing for a certain period of time.
Long-term planning, it does get into our strategic plan. Why are we doing these things?
Okay.
What benefit does the community get from this type of work being done? It's very all encompassing.
Okay. Could you look at the strategic plan and see what parts of it relate to the discussion you're planning to have? Is that a way to?
We can work the strategic plan into the meeting. That's not a problem.
Okay.
But where I took exception to Dan is the amount of time taken. This is just one of many future board meetings we're going to have to work through it. 6 hours isn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. It sounds like it's kind of focused on certain things and it's.
But I think you have to work in parallel. I think if we're going to talk about, how we're going to finance, what we're going to finance and how much we're going to finance, we really need to be looking at our policies when we're doing that, not making decisions and then go back and decide we have to adjust the policy. It makes sense to me. Spend that little bit of time in parallel to make sure that everything's going to fit within what we have now, or if we do need to change those other policies.
Well, it makes me wonder, okay, we're focused on this as our need. If we scan the strategic plan, is there anything we're missing here? Or are we overlooking something? I don't know, but I mean, it's your meeting. You have to kind of drive it and make sure we get the work done so that you can keep doing. But I guess you're hearing some interest in strategic plan issues that are relevant. And we are certainly free to review the strategic plan and come with questions. Hey, strategic plan number item 5.1. I don't see how we're addressing this. So does that make sense to everybody with that approach? Okay. I think you got to
Yeah,
guess.
I am good. We as staff and you as the board have to come together on these projects. They are too big and too encompassing not to be all on the same page.
Okay. Thank you.
What date are we looking at?
July 30th, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. I think.
Annette had sent out some emails on that.
Yeah, the date's been out there a while. So was that everything we had on this
Tuesday.
particular issue then with the meeting? Was this? Was that the end of your report, I guess, in a way?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that there has to be some. The bulk of the discussion has to be the projects, the financing. How do we keep moving these forward in all? Because as staff, we have 8 projects, we can probably fund 5.
With existing resources. Or
Even
identified
those 5, we're
resources.
gonna have to get additional resources somewhere, and that becomes part of the strategy. How do we get from A to Z?
Moving on, one other topic I want to hit before we leave manager's report, and maybe we can talk about this during the commissioner reports. And that was at the IC, and this relates to what Mr. Cherish was asking about with the EV chargers in particular. I know you talked about the meters, you're going to work something up on the meter part of it, but the second part of his was the charger issue. And I know that came up at the ICG meeting about something that City of Port Angeles had done and I think we were going to look, the PUD were going to look into that. Is that something we're doing or have done or?
Oh, so
On seeing what the City of Port Angeles did.
the city of Port Angeles put a cap on what charging people can charge. I believe we can do that. Where it became a little iffy is capacity fee. If you could waive it for them on a capacity fee, I don't think we can do that, but that's a Joel question. He'll be back. So by next meeting, we'll have those answers for you. At present, we have many meters, not only water, but electric meters that people do charge their customers on the backside of the meter. And we don't have a rate for them to charge. So if we do it for EV chargers, you'd probably have to do it for all of those type of meters. So it's a little more complicated than just straight the EV chargers. I liked Tom's comments about maybe you do it through the rates so that it offsets things. That may be a much easier way to go about some of the benefits.
So the short answer is staff is still working on that issue.
It'd be nice to get whatever agreements they did and maybe talk to whoever negotiated that and find out what issues they ran into. Because it sounds like they're ahead of us a little bit on working through those issues. I had a question. Leo didn't bring it up, but he contacted me via email. We had talked about having at this meeting a discussion of the customer information and giving the customers the option of either opting in or opting out of having their information shared with ISPs. And I realized Joel's not here, so that was one reason it's not on the agenda. Is it anticipated we'll have that on the agenda next time? I don't know if you've got a draft agenda built.
It is going to be on the next agenda on the 8th.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right. Question in the back.
You haven't touched on the broadband project at all? What's the status on the broadband?
Just where are we at with the build out? Are you prepared to talk about that at all?
And are we doing updates on the website? Just out of curiosity, are we doing any kind of updates or upgrades on the website?
Or I can't find it. It may be on there, but it's buried.
Yeah, and I don't think we are. I can give a little update and then Jose can jump in. Our crews continue to string the overhead fiber. That has actually worked out really well. We rotate crews around. We're on schedule there. We're not behind, we're not ahead, but we're on schedule to complete in the time frame we're looking at. And that is the end of the year. The underground contractor we hired is probably the same as our crew. They are on schedule. The completion for their work has to be done in November. We think they're going to actually have an end of October end date. Things are going really well for them now. They're starting to move from the Quilcene area to the Discovery Bay Gardner area. One of the places we are behind a little bit is the drops. from the road to the house. They've ran into some problems there, but we only have one contracting crew doing drops right now. We may have to bump that up a little bit to add additional crews to do the drops. We do continue as we're working in these areas, more and more people are signing up. We are, we know we're gonna exceed the 60%, which the grant will fund. We're gonna have to come back to the commissioners and say, okay, how do you wanna move forward? Because the take rate is gonna be a lot higher than the 60% rate. Drops to the home, we're at approximately 190. And we have roughly 1,000 to go. Mile wise, I don't have the miles, but I do know they're using words like 70% of the mainline fiber has been completed in Quilcene, a little bit over, and they are starting smaller percentage in Discovery Bay Gardner area, but they're barely starting the last couple week and a half about. Jose is on site most of the time. Jose?
Yeah, that's roughly about it. They have somewhere between 25 and 30 miles of main line. They are bringing in additional drop crews for the unforeseen that they've seen, just to kind of ramp things back up and get on, start doing a lot more of them. So we'll be seeing quite a bit of that, all those connections actually in.
So do we have provisions in our contract with these folks that are doing the work for us that they have to get so much done by a certain time? And if they find that they're falling behind, then it's up to them to bring in more crews to get it done? Is that basically how it's working? Okay.
I just checked our website and it shows you the areas where the PUD is working, but there's nothing specific to mark progress.
I will say this, and I'm getting a little bit over my skis. They are working on a map that shows completed areas. It's not ready for prime time. We're hoping within a week or so, and that will be on our website that shows, for example, in the Quilcene area, show what overhead has been pulled and what hasn't, what underground has been pulled and had. So it is a work in progress, but it's still probably Eric Pryor's the one primarily working on that with Finley Engineering, and it's fine tuning. It's not showing up soon enough when we complete a section. It takes a little while for the as-bills to get in, and that's part of the issue.
So because this is open access, how does it work if one of the other ISPs has customers? Are these drops done in a certain sequence, or how does that work if it's not the PUD who's actually, are we just running drops to everyone? I mean, exactly, you spell that out a little bit, how the drops are actually working and whether or not those are just PUD customers or whether those are going to be part of the open access. How does that drop process work?
So the drop process works if a customer signs up for service. Doesn't matter with us or with the PUD. They just say, I want fiber to my home. And that's what you do on our website. We do a drop to the house. If the neighbor doesn't request it, we drive by them and we go to the next one that has requested on the website. So, and we don't know if they're our customers or an ISP's customer. We just know they've signed up to put the fiber to the house. We do end up going back a lot of times to the neighbor or the neighborhood to do some additional work, but they've started in an area and they marshal through and they just build to those who've agreed to have a service at their house.
All right. I'm not seeing any more hands or questions. So is that the end? Oh.
Are you open to another staff question? Not broadband, but.
Okay. Give it a shot.
I'll just say, I think at a previous meeting, June was the month we might expect to see outage history data on the website. I just wondered if that's still happening.
Yes, the Mike is verifying right now.
Is that on a dashboard or?
Dashboard.
Still on track for June sometime.
Mike's logging in now to see if it is up and working. If not, it will be within.
But it's a couple
week.
steps you have to take on the website to get to the dashboards, correct?
But it's already there, something, it's already there.
Give us a second.
Yeah. We have the data, whether it's being replenished on or refreshed on the website through our OMS system is what Mike's checking. Like I say, if not, it will be this month and it will be within a week or two to have everything.
All right, if you find it, Mike, holler out and let us know whether it's
Okay.
there or not there. So we're down to commissioner reports.
Mhm.
Commissioner Collins, you ready to go?
This is going to be a very brief report. I have been preoccupied with moving from one house to another and took some time off. Not as much as I needed to. So 31st of May, met with the general manager. On the 5th of June, I will attend the PERMS Executive Board meeting. We'll be chairing that, and also the following day, the general board meeting for PERMS. And I've got on my calendar a meeting with the general manager on the 7th and the 14th.
That is quick. All right. Dan.
So I attended the Waputa Strategic Planning meeting on May 22nd in Olympia. The executive director reported that staff are at 6.5 FTEs and that the process to interview and hire a full-time regulatory affairs position is underway. Waputa.
And sorry, what is that replacing somebody that was?
It's
in that
kind of,
position, or-
it's kind of a new position because Liz kind of morphed into some of her existing positions as communications and other things she was going to retain as the executive director. And this takes some load off of the other staff in other areas. Obviously, policy is Nicholas, but this is a little bit different than policy. This is more about regulatory and legislative and things like that.
Okay.
So it's kind of they'll be at where they were before for the total amount of positions, but it's kind of, things have changed the way they've organized the responsibilities within the staff.
Okay.
So that's kind of how that is going to work out. That's my understanding. They're also aggressively looking to hire a contract lobbyist to replace the lobbyist that passed away. And that is going to happen very early on here, it looks like. A matter of fact, I think that an email came out from the executive director that she was going to go talk to a lobbying firm, a specific lobbyist, about that position. So that may already be filled at this point, for all I know. I don't know if there's been an email that said that had happened for sure or not, but I know that Liz was going to meet with someone who I think potentially she felt was going to fill that void. So that's where they're at with the lobbyist position as well. Also, there were robust discussions on defining vague or redundant or confusing policy language within the current strategic plan. Discussions around diversity of member utilities came up on how that would be looked at within the strategic plan. Addressing other issues like the energy markets, improving on affiliate membership and within the organization, what the responsibilities or requirements would be there. Also legislative outreach, different things like that. So it was a pretty robust discussion about a lot of different things on the strategic plan. But some was a little bit of substance, but mostly it was language, changes in language was where that was headed. The committee also voted on the final draft to be brought before the board of directors for vote at the next Waputa meeting. So look for that draft before the next meeting to come out from staff. I attended the county ICG meeting on May 23rd. There was a presentation by the county and the city on the community wildfire protection plan that county stakeholders have been working on with the county's consultant. It's nearing completion and will be part of the comprehensive plan updates. It's purely a document of recommendation, and obviously Jeff was at the meeting, so it's not like we're being held to some sort of restrictions or compliance issue at this point. I mean, I guess things could change down the road, but right now it's just about recommendations. Other topics of discussion were on potential state drought issues being more put out there. Also on drought funding possibilities. I think the state has $4.5 million for emergency drought funding available right now, but I don't know that we're gonna be in a position to qualify for any of that particular money. Even though we were eligible, I don't think the current conditions that we would be considered an emergency state at this point. Updates from all the four governments on projects they are pursuing, as well as the calendaring of notable benchmarks in the upcoming month were also talked about. Had a conversation with Tom Church on May 25th regarding PUD funding mechanisms, PUD retail broadband charges, EV related issues that he talked about tonight. I attended the Jefferson County Fire Chiefs meeting on June 3rd. Mike Bailey introduced our new safety manager, Jeff Dodd, to the group, to the chiefs. So they appreciated that. The chiefs had an extensive discussion on emergency logistic constraints being caused by the road construction out on Highway 104. I don't know if we've had any issues with outages of that being a problem for us, if we've or not, but they're definitely attuned to what's going on there to make sure their emergency response, and their coverage redundancy is in good shape. So just the public can know that that's being thought about and looked at to make sure that those services get where they need to be in a timely fashion because of that road construction. I attended the Waputa Zoom meeting with Department of Ecology on Policy 2030 earlier today. I know staff was on that meeting as well, so we're keeping up with what's going on with municipal water law. Around ecology is going to set their final rules for that towards fall or early winter, probably it looks like. I will attend on June. Let's see. I will be at PPC in Portland on the 5th and 6th of June. I meet with General Manager Street on the 7th. I'm going to attend the Puget Sound to Pacific Trail meeting on June 13th. I'll be in Spokane for NOAANET on the 11th and 12th, and I meet with Kevin Street on June 17th, and I'll probably have some personal time later on in June where I won't be available. So.
Is the NOAANET board meeting, is that on the 12th?
I believe it is the 12th. It's whatever the Wednesday is.
Seems like, yeah, it seems,
It's
and
the
they'll start at
Wednesday.
like 9.
Starts at 9 a.m. Yeah.
I didn't have that one on.
Yeah, and it's a pretty, the agenda just came out today and it's a pretty full agenda.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a lot of things discussed at that, knowing that, and then they're off in July, so,
Okay. Real quick.
yep. And that concludes my report.
Okay, hang on a second. I had a question, doggone it, I'm losing it. Oh, wildfire. Kevin, where are we at in our wildfire planning right now?
We've gotten the state guidelines, we put together, Scott's put together our program, he's close to being done, and it will be brought back to the board in a future meeting.
When we have that meeting, Chief Black at the ICG meeting made it clear that he had a presentation. I wonder if it would be possible to maybe bring him into the conversation. I don't know if we have time for him to give his full presentation, but it'd be nice to hear what our plan is and how it relates to, the fire district's plans, just so for our benefit and the public benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
it probably then would do it in a special meeting.
Okay.
Deal versus this one, but I don't see that as a problem.
Okay, I think it would be good because it's one of the big ones. I mean, wildfire is one of the major threats we have.
It's gonna get worse.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse. Okay. All right, mine isn't too long. I had a phone meeting with Tom Tierce, who again talked about some of the things that he mentioned on his call. On the 22nd, on the 23rd of May, attended a NODC meeting, which was a discussion of different affordable housing organizations in Jefferson and Clallam counties and what they're working on. And then I was at the ICG meeting that Dan mentioned. On the 29th, I met with the new Clallam PUD Commissioner, Phyllis Bernard. And she's been appointed to fill Jim Waddell's position. She and two other individuals are going to be on the ballot this year for that position. Very interesting lady. Background is a lawyer, and at one point in her life, she served on the SPP board. So she has a background in energy. Her husband's a geologist, and
That's the Southwest Power Pool.
Yeah.
SPP.
Yep. Thank you for that. And her husband's a geologist, and we got into this interesting conversation about salmon and water. And they were held up getting to Port Townsend by some of the construction on replacing culverts. I mentioned that, and he said, well, it's too bad there's not going to be any water in those creeks. And we kind of poked into it further, but they bought a house on the West Fork of the Elwha River. And they said that right now, where their house is, they walk down to that beach, and she said the water doesn't make it to the sound, and there's a huge lack of water. And I asked him, how are the Elwha fish runs? Because we talked about dam breaching, because that was one of Jim Waddell's big issues. It's one of the issues that she's running into in her campaign in Clallam. So we talked about fish, and he just said, something that's not talked about is the lack of water for salmon. And then the salmon require a very narrow water temperature. It's got to be colder than a certain temperature. And so often now the waters are not cold enough at the time when the salmon are trying to move. So anyway, lovely lady. Don't know how she's going to fare in the election, but it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, just on that conversation you had there, obviously when they pulled the dam out, there was a lot of silt and it created a delta. So is the water flow, was he aware of whether or not the water flow in the Elwha had actually changed, or was it the change of the amount of silt that built up down towards the mouth of the river that might be causing?
Well, and he called it the West Fork, which I'm familiar with what I think of as the Elwha River, which is big. I don't think it's the main one. It sounds like it's
because I know they're fairly new to the area, and again, he's a hydrologist, like you said. I've spoken to them as well, but I didn't talk about these issues. So I was just curious on his history of the Elwha. Whether it was really a flow issue, or if it was the change of the mouth of the river.
Yeah,
was causing a difference in the way the amount of water that was flowing through.
I'd have to look at it, because to me it didn't sound like I think it's a different one, but anyway, I can't answer that question.
No worries.
It's hard to imagine.
Just curious if maybe you get what extent that your discussion looked at that issue.
It's hard to imagine that the Elwha River is not meeting the sound, because it's a lot of water coming down that. I didn't ask him in detail. Moving ahead, on the 31st, I had a couple of phone calls from constituents. One was actually turned out to be the city. She was worried about us and how we were going to address her water line. I said, that's a city issue, not us, inspecting for lead and so forth. And another gentleman, Randy Batchelor, who's involved with Habitat for Humanity, and they're applying for some grants that are available out there for energy resilience with affordable housing projects. And I told him that staff is pretty full right now. Once you get your projects to a little more ripe, where you think you need some help from us to apply, let us know. But I just told them we're not going to probably be able to help you apply for things. But
and I'm going to volunteer Jimmy. There's some things we could do possibly.
Okay.
So,
He was talking about microgrids, and this is the Habitat for Humanity project that's kind of close to the library and the I guess it's the elementary school for Chimicum. So, well, if you do want to talk to him, I can certainly pass him on.
if we could help, we would. I
Okay.
don't know if we have the bandwidth, depends what they need, but
Okay.
they shouldn't be hesitant to ask.
Okay. Jimmy would be the contact person.
I would think to start with,
Okay.
Jimmy then pass it on to somebody.
Okay. I will pass that back. I plan to listen in to the PPC member forum on the 5th and the executive committee on the 6th. And I'm going to there's going to be a North Olympic Peninsula Marine Renewable Energy Report and discussion on the 6th at the Clallam PUD offices. And it's a culmination of all these meetings that they've held. So this was the National Labs and the NODC people and some grant money they got to look at marine renewable energy in Clallam and Jefferson County. So there's going to be a report given at 1 o'clock, 1 to 4 at the Clallam PUD office on the 6th.
Do you have any information on the separation there? What exactly in Jefferson County would be the part of this that they would be looking at?
We had a meeting, and I can't remember if Kevin was there. I know Joy was there, Jimmy was there. Mike, were you there too? They had specific projects, and one of the ones they were looking at in Jefferson County was actually where Snohomish PUD looked at in-water generation, which is off of Point Wilson. It's got like the highest water flow in all of Puget Sound. But it's also probably one of the most difficult, projects to do in all of Puget Sound. So that was one of them. They had one on Quilcene Bay where they actually have a pilot thing in there. Forks was looking at trying to do something with drainage ditches or something. So they had a whole bunch of projects, and I think they're going to come back with, they did some community outreach, and they're also doing kind of scientific evaluation of what makes sense, and how might the communities use that power. So
What was the date of that meeting again?
it's June 6th. It's June 6th from 1 to 4 at the Clallam PUD office. I don't think there's a virtual option. I think it's going to be live.
Yeah, 6. I'll be on my way back.
But I can, and it sounds like they're going to have a actual report available at some point. So I'll find out more about that. And then we heard about the Cheyenne Plat hearing. That was a question I have. And I had one more item. So this is out ahead of ways, but did either of the two of you notice the email from Carol West about this Pacific Northwest Economic Regional Summit in Whistler, BC on July 21st to the 25th? Did you see that email?
I don't think I read it in depth. I don't remember Whistler being anything that I read.
So if you do a search for Carol West, Waputa's a sponsor, and it caught my attention because I feel like I go to all these meetings, but I've never been to one that talks about our connection to BC. I don't really understand it. And they're going to cover everything from wildfires to hydrogen to zero carbon stuff to agricultural things, kind of regional issues. And I'd like to go. It's not that expensive, and we get a Waputa discount. And I found some housing up there can be really expensive, but I found some less expensive housing. So any objections to me going to that one? Okay. So it's July 25th or 21st to the 25th. If you're interested, look for Carol's email. And that is my report. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have consent. So do we have any changes to the consent agenda? Can I have a motion for approval of consent agenda?
Moved.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second for the consent agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. We have approved the consent agenda. We have nothing on old business. New business, Jefferson County land purchase. Wow. What's going on?
So Mike's gonna bring up,
And Mike, sorry, did you find anything on that outage issue? So it sounds like, Ron, we don't have anything on the outage yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Please continue. Oh, sorry. Got my people mistaken there.
WD and.
Yeah, you guys just hit us from all directions. You get punchy sometimes.
so, as the commissioners know, we went to the county and said, hey, these two pieces of property that they own by the paper mill would be ideal for a new substation location.
This is us or the county saying that?
We went to the
Okay.
county and asked if they would be interested in selling these parcels.
Okay.
It's two separate parcels. And at the time, the county says, well, could you get by with just the triangular piece? So we went back to the engineering group and said, okay, how much of this upper lot would we need to primarily use the triangular piece? So this is the design we have come up with. It shows how much of the larger lot that we would have to purchase from the county to make this work. So with this though, we've spent quite a bit of time on site. We've walked the area, we've looked at, you know, how to get on the property, off the property. Based on the use that the county would like to use the second half of that lot,
Is
that
that
one up
here?
there,
Okay.
for low income housing.
Oh,
So the blue line is the delineator? Is that what we're looking
The
at?
blue line is where we would say, okay, I need to own at least up to here to make this site work for us.
okay.
After spending time, you know, this is an industrial site. I don't think it lends itself well to low income housing for a variety of reasons. So we're gonna talk to the county if we can just purchase the whole, both parcels, if they would allow us to.
And what are the sizes of these two properties? Do we know?
I do, I don't have them in my notes. The one's a couple acres and the other one's about 5 acres. They're smaller
This
lots.
one's 5 and this one's a couple.
Yes.
Okay, so sound like they were proposing maybe doing like a boundary line adjustment and not buying the balance. Okay,
Correct.
Okay.
And where specifically is the mill?
Well, that's the mill pond right
The
there.
mill pond is right there.
Mill is gonna be over this way, isn't it? Up to the-
Mike, if you go to the next drawing,
The
it's a
mill is
little
over here.
easier. So this shows the mill.
So the gray area is that the
That's the
pond?
mill pond.
Ponds, this is the mill,
Yeah,
and the red outline is the property.
yeah, here's where we're looking at the pond. So this is 8th Street,
Mhm.
over Auto, 8th Street, and then sort of go down towards the mill or back up Mill Road towards Highway 20. So it's
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
our new property is kind of down this way.
Yeah,
There's a right of way.
we're just off the screen on the bottom
Yeah, so we're back
in
up.
auto.
This substation, the brown line that goes through is a transmission line. So it gives us easy access to the transmission line to come in and out of the substation. The green line is our distribution line, and it would give us a new feed to Port Townsend, a new feed back to Four Corners, and ultimately what we're trying to do is get a new feed over to Hastings Road that helps take a lot of the capacity that we want to pull off of Hastings substation would be put on this substation based on the new outgoing feeders. So the design or the placement of this station is ideal for taking the load out that we're trying to pull off of some of our existing stations. It would also give us another feed to the hospital. With the new hospital expansion, it's going to just put more load on the Hastings substation where you can see the green line that goes off the page to the top, that goes to the hospital. Right now, the green box is a normal open switch, so it feeds back to that point, but we would actually use that to feed up. So, after some studying and that, we are gonna go back if the commission agrees and try to purchase both parcels. And if not, then we would just purchase what they would allow us to. I think they're gonna be agreeable to the half purchase, but ideally for us, it'd be nice to get both.
Those two
lots.
parcels, 006 and 003, do we know, are those owned by the county or are those privately owned, or who are those two? Neighboring.
003, 004 are owned by the county. I can't remember where 006.
So what concerns me is, I think this is a great prospect here of what we're looking at, talking about, and hopefully we can get the county. It really seems to me that just looking at, we're really squeezing tens of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure into a spot there where, again, there's trees very adjacent, fire danger, trees falling into the infrastructure. It would make sense to go further north to me and maybe even a little bit east with the substation. So I would really like to see us, if we're going to do this and decide to do it, to get that substation a little bit further away from those adjacent parcels. So we can get a really good clearing around there and make sure the infrastructure is not at risk.
The hardest part is to get the county or the paper mill owns everyone around us. There is a little, one of the timber companies owns a couple of pieces also. So I hear what you're saying, Dan, but with this location, if we could get that upper lot, we could give us a lot more buffer. Right now, we would clean up everything to the transmission line. So on the right-hand side, it would be cleaned
Yeah, it's the
up.
stuff to the west that concerns me because you can see there's trees in there. And
This
so,
is heavily wooded area that would have to be logged off to even make it possible.
so I say, it seems to me to get it a little further east and a little further north would make more sense for the security purposes and the safety of the infrastructure.
So this is the timber company. That's the county. 04 is.
Because if we're, if we've got a,
These are county and this is private.
yeah, and I didn't see the scale on that triangular piece of how close the substation would be to the timber, to the property line. Is it 20 feet, 40 feet? If they're 120-foot tall trees there and they fall into our substation, that's not a good thing.
Well, right now, if they fall into our transmission line, so it does help us get some buffer on the transmission side of things. Because on the previous drawing, you can see there is a road designed to give you a little bit of buffer from where the fence is and the trees. But you're correct, Dan, if one comes out of the right of way onto the substation, it would cause a.
Yeah, it's the west side. I realize we have the ability to do some clearing in there along our transmission stuff. So it's the western line over where the red line makes the jog. It seems to me to move the station further north and further towards the mill to give us more buffer over
Again,
there.
the county doesn't own this.
Yeah.
And the county doesn't own that. That's paper mill, that's
Yeah.
timber company, that's county.
It seems to me if we're going to put tens of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure in there and have a big tree come down and destroy half of our infrastructure, that would be a bad thing.
Have we had any conversation? So it sounds like we were talking to like the administration about
We
this.
talked to the commissioners and they, at the time, wanted us to move as little of the square lot as possible.
Right, and then, so it sounds like we haven't talked to the planning, the permitting side of folks yet in terms of if we acquire whatever, whatever they sell us, we acquired it. Now we want to build a substation. What permitting they would run us through. We haven't had any conversations like that yet.
Haven't talked any permitting other than they would work through the process with us.
Yeah. So I looked it up. It's rural 5 residential, so 5 acre minimum. I don't know exactly how much affordable housing they would be able to get. I suppose they're in charge of their own zoning, so they can change their own zoning to get more on their own properties.
This is one of those that I do think when the county acquired these, it was for a future build out where they could put multiple homes on the lots.
Okay. And who knows, maybe they'll do some deal with a city where they actually get sewer out there too and everything changes. And then I looked up, how did they categorize a substation? And they had utility development major, utility development minor, neither of which I could find a definition for. I'm guessing they would call a substation a major.
I would guess.
And it would be a conditional use permit. So, I hear what you're saying with the need. I think we found out this winter we have lots of need on the electrical side of things. When we're talking to them about buying, I don't know what we can do to make sure that we can actually put the property to the use that we intend it for.
That would be part of a contingency. The
Okay.
purchase would hinge on us getting the permits necessary.
Okay.
And not only permits necessary for the substation, we have to bring some feeder lines out. We have to bring feeder lines in.
Maybe some easements too and other
A lot of
places.
easements.
Yeah.
And but the next step is for the board to say, you know, this does make sense. We would sit down with Mark McCauley, we would work something up, and then we'd go back to the county commissioners and say, okay, we don't want the minimum, we would like the maximum, and see if we can negotiate. If that happens, then we would put the conditions on, say, okay, we will, because it has to be appraised, you know, there's quite a process.
Well, let me throw a hypothetical at you. Let's say they say no. This is as much as we're willing to give you. Are we, you know, what are our alternatives if we don't go here?
The paper mill owns some pieces up here that would work well for us too.
Okay.
So this is not the only area that works within, you know, within a small access, we could do something. Part of the problem with the mill, and we haven't approached them, but they're bigger pieces of property. We would have to kind of segregate them out and then do some work. There is a piece we could look at that the timber company owns that maybe they would look at. So
Which timber company was it?
It's called Discovery. Let me look it up again here. Still got it up. It just says Discovery Timber Company.
I wonder if it was locally owned or if it's.
Yeah, they've got a Discovery Road address.
So there are options.
There are options.
And what you're looking for us today, it sounds like, is authority to negotiate and see what you can even come up with. You've had conceptual discussions and now you're looking for some authority to go further.
We need authority to go further, and we're going back to the discussion that we have to have on the 30th as a board. How important are these projects, not only to staff, but
right
to the commissioners?
Okay. So you're looking for, so I guess let's start with, do we have more questions?
I'll just make a comment that whether we buy the property from the county or not, that'd be a really unfortunate location for low-income housing. There's a long history of low-income housing being contiguous with industrial sites and people having to put up with
Light noise, aromas.
odor.
Yeah.
Odor.
Power Trip is right here. I used to work there, you know, so it's got better. They improve things, but yeah.
But it feels almost punitive to put low-income housing that close to the mill pond.
At least in its current use. Do we have any, I guess, do we have any more comments or questions?
Well, I guess funding, I mean, we got to prioritize the infrastructure, whether this would be a substation that would be financially feasible and what the funding would look like. Again, I'm concerned about squeezing it in too tight of an area. You know, that to me, whether or not those are the right parcels or not, I guess that's something we got to work through, see if there are other options.
Sure. And it sounds like what you're asking for is not final authority to go make it happen. You're asking for the ability to continue, see what you can negotiate, and then you bring back to us kind of what you've been able to work out. If you think it's something that would benefit the PUD.
Yeah, we not only need to make sure the county would be agreeable to the newer process, but then we have to see how much it's going to cost us.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of moving forward stuff, but yes, it starts here saying, okay, conceptually, great, go for it. And then we'll bring back things as it develops.
And this helps us in our July 30th discussion because you'd actually have some more information to share about.
This is one of 5
Yeah.
major stations,
Right.
$10 million worth of work that has to happen that we gotta fund and build. And this site may not work. And sometimes the hardest part is siting these stations. How and where can you put them to make everything work?
Well, I dealt with PSC when they had to just move the Kearney Street substation from here to here, you know, and when you have houses all around it, you get a lot more concerns about substations. And one of the advantages is there's not really much going on out there yet. It's a lot easier for people to accept a substation when it's there before them as opposed to
So-
coming in later.
I move that the board authorize the general manager to continue discussions and negotiation with Jefferson County to determine the feasibility of using county property for a substation.
I don't know that we need a motion, but I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to second. Do we have any questions or comments by the public before we take action? Seeing none, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, you are authorized to continue, and thank you for keeping us informed. And I think this will help us on the July 30th thing. And I think the July 30th thing is going to be, it's never going to stop. We're going to continue talking about these projects, but I think it'll be important for us to pause and focus on them. And I hope our eyes are probably going to be about this big coming out of that meeting, I'm afraid. Okay, do we have anything else? Looks like we're done, unless you had anything else, Kevin.
No, we're.
All right. It is.
I guess I would have one other quick question. I know you've done some work on engineering this substation. Are you looking at having to possibly change the footprint of the substation or the size if this parcel isn't where we go, or?
We have some alternatives that we could change the footprint a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, but this is our ideal site or size for this site, this type of station.
Okay. And when we have our strategic planning meeting on the 30th, if we could, when we're talking about things like this, if you could even give kind of a layman's explanation of, okay, here's why we need a substation here, and here's why here it works well, because even I'm having a hard time understanding, like, okay, I can understand we've got existing substations in Port Townsend that they're at capacity, but how one here works. So I think making sure we understand why these things are important, why it works well here helps us. And then when people ask us questions, we can help hopefully explain it to the public about what's being.
And again,
needed
this
and why.
this isn't to replace an existing substation. This is to augment what the infrastructure we already have.
Without going into a lot of detail, Hastings substation is in a neighborhood. And this station actually works better than trying to expand the existing station at Hastings. It is a better site than trying to reconfigure that station, which I would have to if we don't come up with a solution for or a location that works.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. It is 5:38 and we stand adjourned. Have a lovely evening.